Yeah, my name is Ottmar Edenhofer. I'm a scientist at the Potsdam Institute of Climate Impact Research. I'm at the same time professor at the Technical University in Berlin on the economics of climate change. But within the IPCC, I'm co-chair of Working Group 3. In the whole assessment report, Working Group 1 answers the question to what extent humankind is responsible for the increase of global mean temperature. Working Group 2 answers the question, so what are the impact of climate change on ecosystems and on societies? And Working Group 3 tries to explore the solutions to mitigate climate change. Working Group 3 has a very peculiar task, because when you try to figure out what are appropriate solutions, acceptable solutions, optimal solutions, you have immediately the problem that the fact-value distinction no longer works. For Working Group 1, you do not need values. You have to figure out to what extent the global mean temperature has been increased by burning fossil fuels, right? But in Working Group 3, when we try to figure out what is the contribution of the renewables, what might be the contribution of bioenergy, what might be the contribution of carbon capture and storage, so immediately values enters the stage, so to say, in the sense that people have strong disagreement with some technologies. Some people have a strong preference for technologies. And then we are challenged by the simple fact that this simple fact-value distinction, which is at the core of natural science, no longer works. And so what to do about this? Because the IPCC has the mandate to provide policy-relevant information without being policy prescriptive. So one way to resolve this issue is the following, to think about that the scientists in the Working Group 3 are a kind of cartographers. They try to figure out what are feasible pathways to achieve stabilization goals. Not just one stabilization goal around the 2-degree target, but different stabilization goals. And what we find out is that there are many pathways to achieve low stabilization goals. One of the pathways has a lot of energy efficiency and renewables. Others have more nuclear and carbon capture and storage. And what we do is to make the underlying assumptions explicit, in particular the institutional requirements. What kind of risk management do you need? What kind of policy instruments like a carbon price is needed to promote this kind of technologies? So in the end, the best way is to think about Working Group 3 providing a map for the navigators. And the navigators are the decision makers, the policy makers. And in that sense, this is a very delicate relationship, because when we try to perceive ourselves as map makers, we have no intention to achieve a consensus. If there is a disagreement in our working group about the role of renewables, about the role of nuclear power, so then we ask the people to come up with a scenario which has probably a high share of renewables, a high share of nuclear power, and be explicit about the underlying implications for the navigators, to inform them what are the underlying costs, what are the underlying risks. So in that sense, the navigator in the end has to choose a specific pathway, but based on the map. And in that sense, we have depoliticized the whole process in the IPCC, because we perceive ourselves as map makers, handing over this map to the navigators, and then to leave it to their decision what pathway might be appropriate. I have enjoyed very much the process to get an overview about such a complex issue like the climate change mitigation. So it starts from becoming much more educated on technologies. I learned a lot about renewables, about carbon capture and storage, nuclear power, and so on. And at the same time, to get a better and a clearer understanding what kind of policy instruments could do the trick, so to say, and what are the design options for the policy instruments, what are the design options for the international cooperation, and to work with such dedicated people and brilliant scientists. This is the most enjoyable part, being a co-chair of Working Group 3.